You ever wonder why you feel everything so intensely? Why silence feels safer than people, like the only place your nervous system can finally breathe? Why your heart keeps breaking open, and somehow every time you rise from the pieces a little wiser, a little more yourself? Most women are told these patterns mean they're too emotional, too sensitive, too much. But Carl Jung believed the soul speaks through the very impulses we're taught to hide. Your cravings for quiet, your emotional waves, your need for depth over small talk, these aren't random flaws. They're signals. If you've found this video, it's not by accident. Something ancient in you is waking up, and it's tired of pretending. Today, we're going to walk through 7 addictions that only spiritually awakened women carry, not because you're broken, but because you're becoming someone your old life was never big enough to hold. Stay with me. What you're about to hear may not just describe you. It may finally explain you, to you. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. There's a moment in a woman's awakening when silence stops being empty and starts being sacred. What used to feel like nothing begins to feel like everything. The small talk that used to fill the room, suddenly all of it feels heavy. Your body starts craving what most people spend their life avoiding: quiet. Noise that once helped you escape now feels like interference. Your presence becomes selective. You notice how drained you feel after the wrong conversations, and how deeply nourished you feel after an evening alone with your own thoughts. Solitude stops being a fallback plan. It becomes the first choice. Jung wrote, "The soul often knows the path that the mind struggles to follow. And when awakening begins, your soul pulls you inward with surprising strength. You start canceling things that don't feel right, not out of rudeness, but out of self-preservation. There's a new honesty in your body. It refuses to be everywhere it doesn't belong. It isn't loneliness. It's a private horizon where your thoughts finally settle, your energy resets, and your intuition speaks in a voice that feels unmistakably your own. In that quiet, you notice how many of your old decisions were made from pressure, approval, or fear. In solitude, you begin making choices from truth. From the outside, this withdrawal is confusing. Some will call it avoidance, or distance, or emotional retreat. They'll miss the version of you who said yes to everything. They might even take it personally when your spirit stops performing. But they're not seeing what's happening behind the scenes. For you, solitude is preparation. It's a clearing of old expectations, old roles, old noise. It's a quiet temple where something new is forming in the dark, an identity that isn't built on who you've been to others, but on who you actually are. Jung believed that in all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder, a secret order. Your solitude is that secret order. While your social life appears to shrink, your inner world is expanding. While invitations reduce, your self-respect rises. While the room becomes quieter, your soul becomes louder. This addiction to being alone is not a collapse of your social life. It's the birth of your spiritual one. You're not disappearing. You're consolidating, gathering your energy, calling your spirit back home, so that when you step forward again, you're no longer scattered across 100 versions of yourself. You're whole. There comes a point in awakening when truth stops being a nice idea and starts feeling like oxygen. Before that moment, it was easy enough to smooth things over, to laugh something off, to swallow what you really felt just to keep the peace. But once your spirit wakes up, something in you refuses to play along. Truth stops being optional. It becomes magnetic. Masks that once fit so naturally begin to itch. Pretending, which used to feel harmless, suddenly feels like a tiny betrayal each time you do it. Words that once sounded fine now land flat in your body. Half answers leave a strange aftertaste you can't ignore, like you've chewed on something that wasn't meant to be swallowed. It's as if your spirit reaches out and touches the world directly, and anything false burns your hand. For you, truth is a fire, and only the brave step close enough to feel its warmth. This is why your relationships shift. You notice the gap between what people say and what they actually live. Jokes that depend on putting others down feel cruel instead of funny. Conversations built on gossip or performance start draining you in a way you can't fully explain, only feel. And without warning, your patience for superficiality simply evaporates. Jung believed that a woman's awakening begins the moment she refuses to betray her inner truth for the sake of harmony. There's a line you stop crossing, a smile you stop forcing, a yes that finally turns into no. The deeper you awaken, the more intoxicating clarity becomes. Truth stops being just information and turns into something else entirely. It becomes nourishment, a lifeline, a compass that quietly points toward the life that actually fits you. When you hear someone speak from their core, your whole body relaxes. When you tell the truth, even shakily, even with your voice trembling, something in you clicks into place. There's relief in it, and a kind of power that has nothing to do with being loud and everything to do with being real. It is no accident you hunger for this. Your soul is tired of decorating cages. It wants open sky. The world may prefer you soft, agreeable, and silent, but your spirit is done trading authenticity for approval. This fierce devotion to truth, this refusal to keep lying to yourself just to be liked, that's not you becoming difficult. That's you becoming honest. And honesty is the doorway your awakening has been waiting to walk through. Awakened women don't feel in grayscale. They feel in full spectrum. Where other people might register fine or okay, your inner world moves like weather. A small comment can stir something deep. A song can open a doorway you didn't know was there. A quiet evening can suddenly bring up memories, dreams, fears, and hopes all at once. It can feel like your heart has no dimmer switch, only on fully. There are moments when emotions rise without warning, as if your unconscious is speaking a language more ancient than words. The mind tries to analyze it, to make it neat, but the feeling arrives first, raw, whole, undeniable. Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." But he also understood that intense emotion isn't a malfunction. It's the psyche's way of reshaping itself from the inside out. Your tears don't just fall, they arrive with meaning. They wash away what can't stay. Your laughter isn't just noise. It comes with the wisdom of someone who's seen darkness and still chooses light. Your anger carries truth inside its flame, pointing directly at what's no longer acceptable for your spirit. And your joy, when it floods in, feels like your entire being blooming at once, as if every cell remembers why it chose to be here. This emotional intensity isn't instability. It's transformation in real time. What others dismiss as too sensitive is simply your intuition working at its highest frequency. Your system is highly attuned. You feel the undercurrent in a room, the tension behind a smile, the shift in someone's tone. You don't just register events, you absorb the emotional echo of them. From the outside, it might look like you're overreacting. On the inside, you're receiving so much more information than anyone realizes. You're not overwhelmed by emotion. You're in conversation with your soul. Each feeling that rises is a message. Your emotional depth is a guidance system, not a flaw. To feel deeply is not your weakness. It's your access point to the divine. The heart that breaks deeply is the same heart that loves fully. The woman who cries freely is the same woman who heals profoundly. The one who feels too much is often the one who sees too clearly. You were never meant to be numb. Your emotional depth is proof that your spirit is very much alive. Some women are born with a heart tuned to frequencies other people can't hear. Long before anyone says, "I'm not okay," you've already felt it. The room shifts. The air feels heavier. Something in you quietly leans in. You sense the heaviness behind a smile. You recognize the fracture hiding behind someone's confidence. You feel the storm long before the clouds appear. It's not imagination, it's perception. Carl Jung spoke of the wounded healer, the soul who has walked through its own darkness and because of that can recognize pain in others with uncanny accuracy. You are not guessing, you are remembering. Your own wounds became your training ground, and now your empathy moves faster than your logic can catch up. You don't help because you're naive. You help because you know what it's like to sit in the dark and believe no one sees you. You help because your spirit refuses to look away from suffering. There's almost a physical discomfort when you sense someone is in pain and everyone else is pretending not to notice. Turning away feels like a betrayal of who you are. You understand darkness without needing anyone to explain it. The panic behind someone's silence, the shame underneath their anger, the grief inside their detachment. Healing for you doesn't feel like a hobby. It feels like part of your assignment on this earth. But every sacred gift holds a shadow. There are times when you step in too far. You stay too long. You carry what was never yours to carry. Compassion slips quietly into self-erasure. You start pouring from a place that isn't being refilled. Your heart gives more than your spirit can comfortably hold, and exhaustion becomes a constant background noise. You may notice yourself shrinking your needs so others can be comfortable, telling yourself they've been through so much, while ignoring how much you've been through too. The wounded healer forgets she's still allowed to heal herself. And yet, despite the cost, the calling persists. No matter how many times you say, "I'm done fixing people," the moment you sense genuine pain, your heart moves first. It's who you are. This addiction to healing is allowed for a reason. Your presence changes people long before your words do. There is something in your energy, your way of listening, your lack of judgment, your quiet understanding that gives others permission to soften, to be honest, to finally exhale. You are medicine simply by existing. And while you're learning to offer that medicine without abandoning yourself, never forget, the world is less cold because a heart like yours is in it. There are nights when memories rise like tides, swelling out of nowhere, pulling you back into rooms you haven't entered in years. You feel the echo of an old emotion, the outline of an old version of yourself, as if time briefly loosens its grip just to show you something you weren't ready to see until now. These moments don't come to trap you. They come to teach you. Spiritually awakened women don't revisit the past out of longing the way people assume. It isn't nostalgia. It isn't weakness. It isn't an inability to move on. It's instinct, an inner pull that comes from a deeper intelligence inside you. Some part of the psyche senses an unfinished thread, a moment where something was left behind. a version of you that never got fully integrated. Jung believed the unconscious brings back what the soul is finally ready to understand. So when an old memory rises, an old love that shaped you, an old wound that hardened you, an old dream you abandoned too early, it's not random. It's a summons, a quiet invitation to walk back, not to stay, but to retrieve. The past becomes a mirror, one that reflects three things with startling clarity. You see how much you've evolved. Behaviors you once accepted now feel impossible. Roles you played no longer fit. People who once felt central now feel distant in a way that's strangely peaceful. Certain memories sting because their residue is still in your body. Patterns repeat because their roots were never pulled. You realize some wounds created beliefs you're still living by, and what you're finally strong enough to confront. What once would have broken you now feels like something you can face with both feet on the ground. The past stops being a threat and becomes a teacher. For awakened women, the past is not a place to hide in. It is a place to gather pieces of yourself, a map, not a prison. The pull you feel isn't backward motion, it's alignment. Your soul is walking you through old corridors so you can see them with new eyes, extracting what matters and leaving the rest behind. The past is not calling you back, it's pointing you forward, toward a future that requires all of you, even the parts you once left behind. There comes a point in a woman's awakening when her mind no longer moves through life passively. It begins reading it. The world that once looked ordinary suddenly feels coded. Moments that used to seem random now shimmer with intention. You begin to notice how certain events line up with impossible precision, how conversations arrive at exactly the right moment, how dreams shift tone just as you're on the edge of a breakthrough. Every synchronicity catches your attention. Every coincidence feels like it's been placed in your path by design. Every dream carries a message shaped in symbols your waking mind is still learning to translate. And every change in energy feels like a shift in weather, subtle but unmistakable. This is not overthinking. This is symbolic vision, a capacity Jung spent an entire lifetime trying to teach the world to value. To him, the psyche spoke through images, patterns, symbols, and strange alignments. And spiritually awakened women, especially, become fluent in this language without ever being formally taught. Meaning becomes irresistible. Not because you're trying to control life, but because deep down, you know life is always speaking. You sense patterns before they fully form, feeling the shape of a situation long before the facts catch up. You understand emotional currents without needing anyone to draw you a map. It's not intellect, it's intuition, sharpened by awareness. And with this awareness, the world changes. It becomes layered, rich, alive. You start to see the same symbols appear in different places. You notice how your emotional state subtly synchronizes with external events. You realize that your inner world and the outer world are in conversation with each other. This addiction to meaning is allowed because it transforms your intuition into something almost prophetic. It prepares you for choices your old self would have overlooked. It reveals truths your rational mind would have dismissed. It helps you navigate relationships, opportunities, and endings with a clarity that feels divinely timed. You're not searching for signs. You're learning the language of your own soul. A language that speaks through symbols, through pattern, through synchronicity, through feeling. And once you begin to understand it, life stops being something that just happens to you. It becomes something you co-create with every insight, every instinct, every moment of meaning you dare to follow. There's a force inside awakened women that doesn't sleep. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It's a quiet insistence, a steady pulse, beneath everything you do that keeps repeating one simple truth. You were made for more than the life you used to settle for. Not more success for the world to applaud. Not more achievements to post about. More alignment. A life that doesn't require you to abandon yourself, just to belong. A path that feels like your soul fits inside your body again. Once this inner drive wakes up, growth stops being a nice idea and turns into something non-negotiable. The things you used to tolerate feel unbearable. Environments that once felt comfortable now feel small. Comfort itself starts to feel suspicious, like a soft blanket that's slowly turning into a cage. Stillness doesn't feel permanent anymore. It feels like a pause between chapters. Your spirit keeps leaning forward, as if it remembers a future your mind hasn't seen yet. There's this strange familiarity when you imagine a braver, freer version of yourself. You don't just hope she exists, you know she does. And that knowing won't let you go back to sleep. Jung believed the psyche is wired for individuation, the journey of becoming your fullest, truest self. When this drive activates in a woman, it feels like an inner tide that refuses to recede. You outgrow identities, you shed roles, you walk away from versions of yourself that people still prefer because your soul is no longer willing to live on repeat. You're not chasing perfection. You're chasing authenticity. You're not obsessed with being better in some endless self-improvement loop. You're obsessed with being real, with making your outer life match your inner truth, with no longer betraying what you know in your gut just to keep the peace. That constant inner pressure you feel, it isn't you being hard on yourself for no reason. It's a map, a compass quietly pointing toward the woman you're becoming. Every time you feel restless in a situation that once felt fine, that's the compass. Every time you can't force yourself back into an old role, that's the compass. Every time you feel both terrified and excited about the next step, that's the compass. The relentless drive to evolve is not here to exhaust you. It's here to escort you. One day, you'll look back and realize the times you felt the heaviest internal push were the times you were being shaped the most. Diamonds aren't made by comfort. They're made by pressure that didn't break the core. Every sacred instinct has a threshold, a thin, almost invisible line where medicine can quietly turn into poison. Solitude, at first, is nourishment. It clears the noise, restores your nervous system, brings your intuition back online. But cross that line, and solitude becomes isolation. Not a temple, but a hiding place. Truth, at first, is a blessing. It cuts through illusion, brings clarity, deepens your relationships. But cross that line, and truth becomes bluntness. Words that slice without care, honesty that lacks compassion. Healing, at first, is holy. Your heart shows up for others, your empathy becomes a bridge, your presence brings warmth into cold spaces. But cross that line, and healing becomes sacrifice, constant giving that slowly erases you. Meaning, at first, is awakening. The world feels alive, symbols speak, synchronicities guide you. But cross that line, and meaning becomes obsession, endless analyzing that steals your peace. Growth, at first, is empowering. You stretch, evolve, make braver choices. But cross that line, and growth becomes exhaustion, a pressure that never lets you rest, an inner critic disguised as upgrading. The shift is subtle, a heaviness that lingers even after doing something that once felt nourishing. A dullness in your intuition, like the signal is fuzzy where it used to be clear. A quiet feeling that something pure has become distorted, that a behavior that once lit you up now quietly drains you. Awakened women sense this instantly. The body speaks first. A tightness, a fatigue, a resistance that doesn't go away. Dreams begin to send warnings in symbols and scenes that refuse to be ignored. The spirit whispers that the behavior itself hasn't become wrong, only misaligned. The instinct is still sacred. The form it's taking isn't. The task isn't to suppress the addiction, not to force yourself to be social when your soul needs quiet, not to start lying just to seem kinder, not to shut down your empathy or stop seeking meaning or abandon your desire to grow. The task is to bring each instinct back into its sacred form, to let solitude be a sanctuary, not a hiding place, to let truth be clear and kind, to let healing include you, to let meaning deepen your life, not dominate it, to let growth walk hand in hand with rest. This is where true awakening begins, not just in discovering your gifts, but in learning how to hold their edge without cutting yourself in the process. Here's the truth. Some of the impulses you've been trying so hard to fix are actually holding you together. They stay longer than they logically should because they're stabilizing you while a new identity quietly anchors beneath the surface. You're in the in-between, the strange, disorienting space after an ending but before a beginning, and during that transition, the soul reaches for whatever keeps you upright. These habits aren't failures, they're scaffolding, a temporary structure that supports you while the foundation of your inner world rearranges itself. Jung once said, "What you resist persists," and he understood something powerful. The psyche doesn't release a behavior until the deeper purpose of it has been fulfilled. These addictions aren't here to be fought or shamed. They're here to be understood. They keep your inner world from collapsing while you shed old layers. They protect you until the next version of you is strong enough to stand on her own. When the new self solidifies, the scaffolding naturally falls away, not because you forced it, but because you no longer need it. If even one part of this video felt like someone finally opened a window into your inner world, that's not coincidence. That's recognition. And every part of you, even the pieces you still struggle to explain, is evidence of a woman returning to her authentic self. Awakened women don't find each other randomly. They gravitate, they resonate, they rise together. So if this spoke to your soul, don't disappear back into the noise. Leave a comment. Tell your story. Your words might be the mirror another woman has been searching for her entire life. And if you want a space where Jung's wisdom meets the truth of your own awakening, hit subscribe. We're building something here. A home for women who feel deeply and see clearly. Your journey isn't ending. It's beginning.